I'm Jadea Murray, and here on a positive note, we highlight the most heartwarming stories from all around our tri-state that move and inspire us. We're in the middle of Black History Month, and I'm feeling pretty inspired by the unique ways people are celebrating. Take Richard J. Bailey Elementary in Greenburgh, for example. Sure, you could learn history from reading a textbook, but this Westchester school took its lessons to a whole new level. Welcome to the Black History Hall of Fame.
It's just amazing how we have this to help us.
Far from the conventional textbook history class is a lesson to remember.
Claudette Colvin and Rosa Parks, they both did the same thing. They refused to give their seat up on the bus.
Roman is one of many elementary students at Richard J. Bailey School who is thankful to engage with foundational footsteps in Black history that is literally written on the walls.
Every time we walk down here, we can kind of be reminded, hey, look who this is, look what the amazing things they've done.
From the start of Black History Month, Black colleges to industry trailblazers who continue to pave the path for students as they walk through the Black History Hall of Fame.
And a lot of people don't know who these amazing figures are.
That's why the school continues for this second year, where students can simply stroll the halls surrounded with Black inspiration.
There were teachers back in that time that they can be inspired by to become teachers themselves. So that was the whole goal and the purpose.
Integrating pivotal people and milestone moments, like this collective mural of inspiring historical figures made by students themselves.
I did Jackie Robinson. He was the first Black man to be on a major league. I guess I can say I'm really proud of mine.
And why did you make Louis Armstrong?
Because I like his music. I like his What a Wonderful World.
Between art class, music, and more, it's a history lesson seeped into different facets of this month's curriculum to remember the past and stride to the future.
They want to be doctors, lawyers, they want to be teachers, principals, whatever it is. And these are people who have had these positions in the past that they can be inspired by and say, I can do that also.
The kids were so inspired that they say they hope their display will outlive February, and I guess the teachers are listening because the Hall of Fame is staying up until the end of the year. Now, high schoolers on Long Island also have an impressive ongoing project. In fact, some might say it's out of this world. These are the cheers of students who just found out their research experiment is going to outer space. The Freeport High School CubeSat launch project team is just one of 5 teams in the U.S. that get to blast off. And it's all thanks to the Blue Shift Aerospace Corporation and the kids' hard work.
The fact that we can show that, just high schoolers can do something this extraordinary is amazing.
When the rocket comes back to Earth, the students will get to analyze all the data it gathered in orbit. No big deal, just a bunch of teenage rocket scientists. Now, over in Brooklyn, the Caribbean community just got a gift 5 years in the making. If you've been around the block, you might remember the iconic Caton Market in Flatbush. Well, last week, doors finally reopened, and of course, News 12 was there to see it.
The Flatbush Central Caribbean Marketplace is back and better than ever. The marketplace, formerly known as Flatbush Caton Market, closed temporarily in 2017 to be redeveloped, but is now reopened, selling everything from cultural clothing to accessories.
Cultural merchandise from the various countries: Trinidad, Jamaica, Guyana, Barbados.
I do semi-formal, lot of linen dresses.
Located in the heart of Brooklyn's Caribbean community, the marketplace features more than 24 vendors, most of which have been with the market for over 20 years. It's a vision brought to life by former council member Dr. Una Clark, who wanted to give vendors a permanent home. Vendors who once sold their products on the street.
The community got outraged by it, especially Community Board 14. Asked me to take my immigrants like myself back to where we came from. I decided it was not going to happen. I hardened my resolve.
So she led the charge, pushing for funding so vendors could sell their products in tents before ultimately moving to a permanent building. But now, with the help of the city, the building has been revamped to include a Caribbean-themed food hall, a commercial kitchen, and even a bar and lounge.
It means a lot to us. It's like a fulfillment that, we fought for, and now we get it done.
With its new name, Dr. Clark says the market is making its mark in the community, giving pride to Caribbean Americans who have struggled for recognition.
Winter's been playing peekaboo with us for the past couple of weeks, but every time it snows, Jersey City residents around Riverview Park get a special treat. Meet Frosty. He's just chilling out in Riverview Park. Artist Katie Duffy McGeehan sculpts this snowman whenever there's a big storm.
You know, when we were kids, we would think about how we wanted to go build a snowman. It was exciting, and it's just still exciting for me. I'm an artist, so making art is my favorite thing to do, so that's fun. I like the challenge of it because I have to finish it before I get frostbite. And it's also really fun now that I've been doing it for a while. People know about it, so they come out and they take pictures with them, and it's really cool to see like the community kind of celebrate Frosty.
Have you heard about this big win for Westchester on Wheel of Fortune? Jen Sperano played a mean game, and it turns out that she wasn't even playing for herself, the fame, or the fortune. We're headed to Pleasantville to learn more.
The category is an inseparable bond between 28-year-old Jen Sperano and her 98-year-old grandma, affectionately known as Mima.
It's getting hot in here.
When the pandemic started, Sperano moved in with her grandma to care for her. Wheel of Fortune always brought them together and made the tough times a bit easier.
When we would get ready for bed, it would be like, all right, we're gonna get changed, and then it's gonna be time for Wheel of Fortune.
Sperano got pretty good at the game, and Mima would say,
She's gotta get on that show.
Mima passed away last April. That's when Sperano decided she needed to get on the game show for her grandma. And in her audition tape, she talked about how solving puzzles for 30 minutes a day created memories that will last a lifetime.
Throughout the entire time of quarantine, whenever the show was on, we watched Wheel of Fortune together.
Sperano taped her episode last December wearing her grandma's favorite color, red, for good luck.
This one is for her, for Mima.
And on Monday night, dozens of friends and family gathered in Pleasantville to cheer her on.
Definitely a lot harder than when I was like sitting on a couch cuddled under a blanket next to my grandma, but it was still like so cool.
Sperano was the big winner, taking home $17,000 and just missing the bonus round.
I was like so ready to cry, and I said, I have to hold it together, like I have to be good for her.
But for her, it wasn't really about the money, it was about making Mima proud.
She would just be cheering me on and super excited.
Earlier this month, we got word of a heroic rescue of a woman and her 2 dogs who fell through the ice in Fairfield, Connecticut. Well, this update brings an extra twist to that story because the woman who was rescued is also pregnant. We're hearing from her now that she's safe.
Perry's Mill Pond is a favorite in Fairfield for dogs and their owners, including Melissa Miller.
I hike both my dogs, Oscar and Misty May, pretty much daily.
Friday, February 4th was no different. Despite bad weather, the trail was pretty empty.
I was heading back from my hike and met Lauren and her dog Cletus.
Lauren Efren had never crossed paths with Melissa until that day.
I remember just thinking, here's another brave woman out on a cold, rainy day walking her dogs.
After talking for a bit, the 2 women and their pets went their separate ways. Melissa was heading to the parking lot when Misty May ran out onto the frozen pond.
I was nervous and calling her to come back, and she literally looked at me and fell right through the ice. My fear was that she would go under the ice, and my instinct was, I have to help her.
Lauren was on her way back when she saw Melissa walk out onto the ice.
And I'll never forget the image of her falling in. And she screamed, and I said, I'm calling 911.
Now in the frigid water, Melissa tried to lift her dog onto the ice, but it kept breaking.
At that point, I was inhaling water. It was becoming very difficult to breathe, and I realized I had to think about myself.
Melissa is 7.5 months pregnant.
I basically just went onto my back and floated just to catch my breath.
200 yards away, at a house across the pond, Bridgeport firefighter Marcus Dierna and his wife were in the kitchen.
We looked out the window and saw some commotion, and
possibly somebody or something in the water. So my fire department training kicked in. I looked for a rope. I didn't have a rope. We grabbed a garden hose.
I saw movement, from the corner of my eye, and it was Marcus. I just saw him running, and I just screamed, bring a rope, and he had something on his shoulder.
Tied the garden hose that I had off to a tree and made my way out on the ice.
The next thing I know, this man gets Misty and I out of the water. I was completely numb, shaking, and all I could think about was my baby and if it was okay.
Fairfield firefighters and EMS arrived shortly after. While Melissa was rushed to the hospital, first responders rounded up her dogs, who were fine. Doctors confirmed mom and baby were too.
Marcus was honestly my guardian angel that day, and I don't know what would have happened had he not been there.
I was in the right place at the right time and was happy to do it.
Back home, the events of that day are still surreal for Melissa and her husband.
Marcus literally saved my entire family that day. That morning started out as any normal day was, and I was quickly reminded of two things, and it was the fragility of life and the so-called comfort we have on a day-to-day basis, and more importantly, that there really are heroes in our community.
Not that Marcus will call himself one.
We sort of see this stuff all the time, and it's really just another day in our life. But when you get to meet the people on the other end, it sort of leaves an impression on you.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you.
A week later, in an emotional reunion, they met back at Perry's Mill Pond, the first time returning there since Melissa's rescue.
I'm just filled with relief and gratitude that it all turned out okay.
I've been overwhelmed by their reaction.
3 people, no longer strangers, now linked by a life-saving connection.
We've definitely formed this sort of bond, and I just feel so grateful.